I'm very excited because this is my dream team of people, accounts on social media. These are the 3 people that I go to first, most frequently, and last every single day. They're also super good human beings, which helps. Aaron Rupar, Acyn, who's I'm like here and I'm blown away by, and Ron Filipkowski. Hi guys, and thank you so much for joining the Siren.
Yeah, this might be your dream team, but probably a nightmare for for a lot of people, right?
Maybe,
That's
but
true.
I bet that 9 out of 10 left and or right, like politically active accounts, and particularly on Twitter, but more than that now, go to you guys all day long because it's what you're doing. The clips, it's most often they speak for themselves, and you guys don't put your own spin on them. Um, Sometimes you do, but not all the time. But people can repackage what you do, and video, obviously. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what is happening with video on social media right now. Yeah, Aaron, you want
Aaron,
to
you want to
start?
go? Or-
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, you're right, Joe, that there are a lot of people on the right who follow me, even though obviously they disagree with my politics. And one of them, tragically, I guess, was Charlie Kirk, who was a longtime follower, and we had bantered. He always kept it, at least with me, relatively civil. I know, he kind of was pushing some of the libelous claims against trans people, and I mean, he certainly demagogued a lot of issues, but it's always weird that there's been a number of times now where people have passed, and it's like, well, you see that they're following you in eternity, I guess, but it's the fact that they're gone, it's kind of an eerie thing to process. But I don't know. I mean, there's not really too much going on in social media video these days. I mean, obviously, Blue Sky has become a place where I post more of my work. And, it seems like Threads has actually rolled out some cool, like, reposting video features. And, I notice a little more engagement and kind of circulation of videos on there than was the case like a year or two ago. But, obviously it's a target-rich environment with Trump. I mean, just today, a couple hours before we were chatting, he was at a 9/11 commemoration event and didn't look to be doing that great. His mouth was kind of drooping and it looked like he was having a hard time keeping eyes open. So every day is a new adventure, and clips like that obviously spread far and wide. But it's kind of exhausting because it's usually not very fun stuff to clip in terms of it's good content but bad for our democracy, as I think Darren Rovell once infamously tweeted.
I'll talk about that as far as like both sides using our work. That's I guess a good topic. Because they do. I mean, Charlie also followed me and we followed each other. I think a lot of us follow people on the right because we want to know what they're doing and what they're up to and where they're going to be at certain events. And they follow us too because they kind of want us. They kind of want to know what we're putting out there about them,
Yeah.
and about Trump and some of their other. I mean, a lot of times they're learning about things that their own Republican elected officials are doing from us. That's how they're getting the information, and then they might go to a different source, but sometimes it starts with us. So I don't care if any of them use my clips at all, but I know, like, I think probably Acyn and Aaron definitely get retweeted by the right a lot more than I do because they keep their clips less editorial. I mean,
Right.
Acyn for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron does a little bit, I notice, of commentating from time to time, but if you play it straight and you just do a quote, a direct quote, and don't comment, you stand a lot better chance of getting retweeted, not only by the right, but by journalists, because, if a journalist is going to use your clip, they're not, and you insert your opinion in there, that brings the odds way down that they're going to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
To that
oh,
clip,
go ahead.
the clip I earlier Trump today at the commemoration where he wasn't looking good is a good example, because I think my caption was literally just like Trump at a 9/11 commemoration event. And obviously I posted it because of his presentation there. But, had I put like drooping mouth or something, I mean, that's where you kind of open yourself up, even though I think in that case it would have been factually correct. If you're kind of editorializing, people can accuse you of misleading people or, just kind of having an agenda. So when in doubt, I try to err on the side of playing it down the middle, because usually people are going to pick up on why you're posting something. And so they kind of make that case for you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it sometimes feels like you're baiting, like it's bait, because Ron
We
knows
are.
me. Ron knows me so well by now, right? Like
And
he'll like,
there are times when I post something, I'll go, "Ah, Joe's gonna be all over this,"
yeah,
like
yeah,
just
Yeah.
knowing that, and other
Although
people
Ron, I
too.
miss your you do less of the Mar-a-Lago Instagram videos. I used to really enjoy those videos from you just from an
You
entertainment
know,
standpoint, but
I have
yeah.
completely gotten off Instagram. Like, you're very right. I used to dive deep into that. I don't know why. I think because I'm writing so much more now that I just don't have time, or I have to kind of like narrow my focus. But
yeah,
yeah, I haven't
Okay,
even been
well,
on Instagram in so long. I used to do a lot of that.
I'm
yeah.
realizing there's a market opportunity here for me, maybe.
Oh
I
yeah.
gotta
Yeah,
I gotta
yeah.
start looking
Well,
at the
and it's funny
Go go ahead. All yours, man.
okay.
No, oh my god, was that from the early days? Like when I first met you, and you had like people helping you clip, and it was like two ladies or something,
Yeah.
and they
Yep.
would just sit and watch that shit all day long, and you're like, you have no idea what this is like. It's like having to watch MAGA videos on Instagram all day long. It's like mind melting.
Yeah, all their like parties. I mean, you're getting a lot of the golf stuff and the Mar-a-Lago stuff, like the behind the scenes things, because it's all coming from their phones, and
Yeah,
they're clout chasing. They're wanting to show all their friends, that I'm with Trump, and I think a lot of times he doesn't even know that they're recording him, but he's got to be aware every time he's in public. But
yeah,
that's really
Yeah.
the only way to get the golf videos, because they don't let the media, he doesn't let reporters near him on the golf course. He
that's
doesn't
weird.
want to be filmed, shanking a bad shot or missing a putt, or
Yeah.
so the only way you're going to get it are from his golf buddies. So yeah, I mean, spent a lot of time like cultivating on Instagram people who work at his golf courses and Mar-a-Lago and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Acyn, Ron and I were joking because you do Abby Phillips' show like basically every night, right? And those
This
tweets
is my
do
pet peeve with Acyn.
those tweets do better than her show. Like just right? The clips go pretty viral because you're how do you pick for all of you guys, how do you know there's so much fucking stuff out there, so much content, there's so much going on. Like, how do you pick and choose and then how do you coordinate that with each other? Because sometimes it's the same event and all three of you have clips, but they're not always the same, or it's not always the same. Whatever angle or something's different. But like Acyn, why do you do Abby Phillips' show? And how do you pick those clips? And then how do you guys coordinate all of that when there's like one event you're all covering?
With Abby Phillips, I think that show started during the election, and I started getting decent clips from that show. That's where Scott Jennings took off from, and I clip him. I think one of the biggest clips of that time during the election was I I think it was Ryan Gerdesky. He said, "I hope your beeper doesn't go off." I just basically scout that show ever since, just because it seems to produce clips, and I know there are like two or three people on the right that also scout that show. It's not always great, and sometimes kind of frustrating, but sometimes it pays off. As far as coordination, there with me and Aaron, like sometimes we coordinate, but for the most part, we're basically competing against each other. We're going. It's great actually. It makes us better clippers, I guess, but we're both racing each other, and then I'll DM Aaron and be like, "Oh, you got me there. I was taking too long with the caption," and we're basically competing on every clip. And sometimes I'll miss one, and I'll see he got it. I'll retweet him, or he'll miss one. He'll do the same for me. But it's basically the reason why clipping for me is taken off so much is because I've been competing with Aaron for like 5 years, and like I mean, it started during COVID, during the I mean, when I first started clipping, I think one of the first times it took off was the one night Aaron took off from covering a Trump rally, and that was when t- uh, John
He
Kennedy
loves
or
when you
whatever.
take a night off, Aaron.
It wasn't when Aaron got banned from Twitter because because Elon
It
was
was
in a
only one
mood.
day,
Yeah.
maybe two.
Yeah.
But I mean, that night it was when Kennedy said something like, "It must suck to be that dumb," when talking about Pelosi. And that clip I noticed produced like 1 million or 2 million views back before they were doing impressions, and I was like, "There's something here." So I was like, after that, I was watching every Trump rally and covering all of his events. And I think at this point, I've only missed like one or two out of in the past like 5 years.
The thing I marvel at, I don't really watch news anymore. I don't watch CNN. I sometimes listen on my Alexa device, but I get my clips, my news clips from you guys, right? So I know it's shocking to me how you do this. This is what I need to know. I know you're going to get the clips up for this event so fast that there's not going to be any lag time where I'm like, oh shit, all my friends are ahead of me because they're watching this happen on CNN. How the hell do you do that? Like, how do you get the clips up in the midst of the thing still unfolding while still watching the thing that's unfolding to know what to clip next? How do you do that, Aaron? How do you do that? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, shameless plug. I'll probably clip this actually and put it on social media later, but it's a lot due to Snapstream. And I'm a brand ambassador for them, but they have a clipping service that records everything in real time, and they have integration into both X and Blue Sky, where you can write a caption, as you're watching the event, and just hit a button and it uploads. And so that is kind of the premier product. And I really feel like if you're going to exist in kind of the live clipping space, it's a must, because there are other services out there and they have different strengths, but none of them really has anything near the live clipping capability that Snapstream has. So, pretty much anybody kind of operating the space, whether it's, Acyn or Nikki McCann Ramirez used to do a lot of tweeting. I think maybe she does a little bit less now, but Justin Barragona. I've noticed the Bulwark recently has been kind of
Yeah,
making the
they've been doing
push,
it.
getting a little more competitive, and they benefit because they have some people with big accounts who it seems like they're kind of intent on tweeting their clips, which obviously makes a ton of sense. But it's a competitive space, and that's the leg up, is having access to a tool which with a lag time of maybe about 30 seconds, you can get those clips up right away, and that's really an advantage over people who don't have it.
Yeah, for me, that's honestly, I mean, I've told you this for a long time since before COVID. I was like, you are where I get most, and have been for all this time, most of my like video news from the video resources. And then Ron came on. Ron, did you come on the scene before Acyn, or
At the same time as
same
Asen.
time?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were after Aaron for sure.
Yeah.
Because Aaron honestly was like somebody who really helped me out. I don't know if he helped out Asen, probably not. He doesn't like Asen, but no. No, but yeah, I mean, he really helped me out, because when I started doing it, I was aware of these guys and they were kind of doing the same kinds of things, Trump rallies and Fox and Newsmax and stuff. So honestly, I didn't really want to step on their toes, so I tried to go into like other areas like the podcasters or OAN or and honestly, some of the best content, it was better content over there, because they say crazier shit on some
Yeah.
of these podcasts than they're on their best. I noticed that, like, a Burchett would go on a podcast and say some wild stuff about UFOs or something. Then he'd go on Fox and he'd be on his best behavior and tone it down. And I'm like, I'm getting better stuff off the podcast. So, what happened was Aaron started, retweeting my stuff a lot, during that time period, him and a few other people,
Me.
because I think he was, recognizing that I was like getting similar stuff, but from different places than him. So I try to always like remember that and pay it forward. I love retweeting small accounts. Like, that gives me a big thrill. When I retweet somebody who's clipped some obscure thing and they have like 200 followers, and I look the next day and they have 2,000 followers, I really get off on that. I really am big in like promoting smaller creators.
Yeah. And
Yeah, no, Ron, you're exactly right that you were really filling an interesting niche, at that time with those shows, which are a little bit off my radar, but I recognize just through your clips that there's a lot of good content there. And again, not to keep bringing up Charlie Kirk, but I found myself in recent months and years watching a lot of his show, because it was kind of a little off the radar on Real America's Voice, but he'd get a ton of like Republican senators or like Trump officials, kind of Trump world prominent people, influencers. So that sometimes can be kind of where the magic is, because there are a lot of people with eyes on CNN, Fox, kind of the big channels, and there are fewer eyes, especially from people who are left of center on these shows. And there are a lot of examples. I mean, Ron brought up Burchett. Another one is Pete Sessions, who is a favorite on CNN, and he's very straight laced, but then, he'll go on Newsmax and kind of let the freak flag fly a little bit more, and those can make for the best clips. So, there's a lot of content out there. I watch a very small percentage of it. And so, I echo what Ron said about the thrill of kind of retweeting smaller accounts. And, I'd encourage people to jump in if they're curious. It can help to find kind of that niche of something unique that you can kind of own, that still has news value.
Yeah, it's funny because Ron and I are talking about, again, going back to Abby Phillips, Acyn, about Jennings, and in many ways, you clipping him, because I think he uses your clips too, but like you clipping him has actually made him a bigger deal than he might otherwise have been, because those clips, he loves that like rage bait, right? Like he loves poking people with the crazy things that he says. And when the clips are available to him, then he knows that that shit's going to take off. So in many ways, we have you to thank for Scott Jennings' new resurgence as, you know, this sort of right-wing pundit, whatever. Like that, I think that's kind of funny, but also I hate you for that. So thanks.
No problem.
So do I.
um, yeah, because like right before you were clipping him, he was just
He was
doing that.
nobody.
Yeah.
Like, and nobody watches that show. This is my beef with Acyn. It's like the lowest rated show on CNN, the fight
Jesus.
show. We
They had to move it to
call
a
it,
Yeah,
cookie.
we
although
call it the fight show, right?
But they're
Acyn also
combining it
owns
with
the 5, which is like top rated.
The
So
fight, yeah, no, yeah, right. But you
yeah.
know, he clips that show, and he has for a long time, and he's like the only one who clips it. And I say, like, he made Jennings a star. Like, Jennings was not that well known before Acyn really started. I don't know if he's getting like money from Abby or something. You know? I mean, I like Abby, and you know, I'm not down on the show per se. It's just like I see his Jennings clips, and they take off. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from him,
Yeah.
but I hate Jennings, so
Yeah.
I don't like that he's getting so much run out of it. He just got a nice big contract
right.
too, thanks to Acyn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
I think those clips, I mean, you know, I think there's news value to them, but there is, you know, I'm uneasy with it sometimes. And like with Jesse Waters, for instance, where, you know, and Acyn had a clip yesterday. I'm kind of blinking what the exact quote was, but, you know, something about like, this means war, you know, kind of, and like, he knows that these are going to get clipped and kind of circulate. And, you know, this is kind of what he wants. And, you know, people still respond to it. And I don't think that, I think there is news value there because a lot of people listen to him, and like, he is a voice that speaks for a contingent of MAGA, so that can't be ignored. But you know, there is kind of that dynamic with some of these guys where I don't know if like trolling is the right word, but they want the attention, you know, and so
mm-hmm.
it feels a little icky sometimes to give it to them. But you know, I guess ultimately, if myself or Acyn didn't post clips like that, I think someone else would. I mean, the people, the intended audience are, you know, are hearing what Waters says, regardless of whether people on the left are amplifying that. But you know, maybe there is that element of like, I don't know if it's trying to terrorize people, but yeah, there's kind of a double game going on there where we're clipping them, but sometimes they want that, you know.
Well,
Well,
that.
on the water,
Oh, go ahead, Acyn. Sorry. Yeah.
on the Waters clip, I actually didn't clip that because that was, and I ran it by everybody first because it almost came across as like he was inciting violence,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of stayed away from that. I know Nikki posted that, Nikki McCann Ramirez, but yeah, like, and that's one of the issues. It's like most of the time, I mean, if I were to clip everything that I see, like I would probably be doing 10 times better. But I back off from a lot of stuff that I just like I'm not gonna post slurs. Like I'm not gonna post slurs against any group. Like there's a lot of like I think yesterday was Nancy Mace doing that against trans people. Um I'm not gonna post incitement to violence, you know. The when the Trump shooting happened, there was like a split second where I'm like, do I post that? Like, am I posting something that, is gonna cross the line? But I mean, a lot of stuff doesn't get posted. A lot of stuff, like, and then there's also issues like, I stay away from podcasts for the most part. I have no idea what's going on with the copyright situation there. Most of, I'm sure they don't care, but sometimes they do. I like the rules for Twitter and whatever X now, seem to change all the time. Like before the election, I actually got hit with they didn't have community notes back then. They had something else. They had like some kind of like thing they put on all election tweets. They
Oh
said like
yeah.
Judge Janine said something, and there was a part about election denial in there. And Aaron went through that whole time. Like he was getting a bunch of clips like that, and I stayed away from them because I kept seeing those notes. So I specifically clipped a portion of her monologue where she didn't even mention anything about elections or whatnot. I quoted it, and they still hit me with that note.
Mm.
So I stayed away from that, and then now I have no idea what the rules are. I have no idea what's going to set off enforcement. So I totally stay from anything. Like there's no clear outline of what's getting forced. And there was no clear outline before either. So it's just it kind of like I stay away from stuff that, I think may have an issue.
Yeah. And yesterday was a really interesting day in this respect with the Charlie Kirk killing, because like, I mean, the videos of that were, the second one, which was closer up, was like one of the worst things I've ever seen. And yet, like when I pulled up my timeline throughout the day, like that stuff was getting pushed into my For You, like every new video, because obviously I
Yep.
was curious from like a news standpoint to figure out what was going on. Of course, that there was the video of the guy on the roof, and other kind of like videos from the scene, which possibly showed this year, like showed different angles of what happened. And yeah, that obviously doesn't do good things to people when you watch a lot of videos like that. And there really probably should be better controls on X to like have people opt in or something. Cause like I could imagine like my spouse or like other people in my life who aren't super politically engaged, like seeing that stuff and, having to go to see a therapist or something after that. I mean, it's just brutal.
Yeah,
I
that what
yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Well, I want to speak to the Kirk thing too, because there was so much false stuff being put out, and there is still today. Mostly from the right. I know the three of us, like we really want don't want to ever put out anything that's fake or phony or false or misleading. Sometimes we get called out for taking things out of context, but I think that that's just bogus. We could talk about that later, but really, like, you watch these people, especially on the right, but some on the left, they put out these bogus reports, like whatever the case may be, whatever the allegation is, and they know it's going to go viral. We know it's going to go viral, and they like do it on purpose. Like they get off on that. They like the clicks. And we know, looking at something that we see, like we know, oh, this would get 1 million clicks if we put it out, but it doesn't look right. It's suspicious. It's fishy. Like, so I know the three of us will all not go forward with that. We're not going to put out something unless we're sure it's accurate and correct. Now, sometimes we get fooled. That happens, but it doesn't happen a lot. And if we do get fooled, we immediately take it down and apologize, whereas they don't do that. So
Right.
there's also, a lot of self-policing on our part. I mean, I would be mortified if I put out something that turned out to be fake, and deeply embarrassed. But I feel like for a lot of people who do this, there's no sense of shame or anything if they put out something that's not correct.
No, I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
know if you guys.
guys with, the monetization, I think makes that worse too.
Yeah. Did you guys see that video that went viral that none of you posted? Because all of you probably knew what it was actually from, where Marge was supposedly putting up a poster outside of her
Yeah.
office that
Well,
had.
AI is, talk about
Yeah,
that.
That
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah.
that actually that's a guy that he changes his name all the time because he keeps getting banned. But it's I think that came from Politics or whatever his name is, Tom
Oh,
Adelbach or whatever. Because
yeah.
I've seen the news. I've seen the news. It's an After Effects like template or something where he's able to change that she's putting something else up. I think it was like an anti-trans thing
It
she was
was.
putting up on,
Yeah.
and he switches it every time to something different. So the second I saw it, you could see the way her hands are edited in with the sign.
But people on our side, lots and lots and lots, even the Tennessee Holler, who I usually think is usually gets it right. They were posting that video because Marge had been standing with the survivors, and so it made sense-ish. But the second I saw it, I remembered that what it was there's only two genders or something like that, and it was outside of one of her colleagues' office whose daughter was trans. But I saw that clip on at least 20 accounts that I follow, and I was like, y'all, this is fake. So AI, what do you do out there now with AI? Because like everyone was saying Trump's address last night was AI, and I was like, I don't know, is this AI?
It
But
was
AI,
edited. It was edited.
yeah.
Yeah.
But how is
Very
AI
poorly
threatening
edited.
what you do? Like, and that feels kind of like scary territory, slippery slope shit.
I think that's where there's an advantage to actually kind of putting in the work of watching all the source materials, because like when I'm clipping, it's from either like a cable source, which is obviously trusted and that they're not going to be broadcasting like an AI Trump thing on CNN, or, it's like a stream that, is verified in terms of, I know it's authentic. It's not, it's from a trusted source. So,
Yeah.
I think that there are accounts who kind of find clips out in the wild and sort of amplify them, whether by, doing like, what do they call it when you like press the button down and you could repost just the video, just reposting the video, I guess. Or they'll like screen record other people and, so that they're not necessarily engaging with like the source materials. And I think if that's kind of if that's how deep your clips run, I could see how it'd be easier to get fooled by something that's AI. Whereas if you're actually watching credible sources, you're almost certainly not going to post anything like that. And then, there's always that like next step, or if it is something that's kind of disembodied, where it's just a clip from some like random account, I'm usually a little bit skeptical going in. Because as Ron said, I mean, there's nothing, I couldn't imagine anything worse than like posting something that blows up and then it turns out it's fake, because like you're kind of torching your credibility in one shot with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, as we kind of wrap, the last question sort of series that I have here, it goes back to something we were talking about earlier in terms of like amplifying these people. Like Acyn, you were talking about how you don't, necessarily you don't post slurs, you don't post hate speech. You wouldn't you didn't post a podcast recording that I did with Newsom because he talked about punching them in the nose, I think. You didn't want to put that. You put other clips, but not that one. But Aaron, I know you and we used to have this conversation, and I think you were on my podcast years ago about this, because people were giving you shit by saying, oh, well, you're just amplifying Trump, you're just normalizing Trump, and you're like, Trump's not going away. So, but like, do you still get shit? Do you guys get any shit for any of that? I certainly wouldn't give it to you, but do people say, you're just amplifying him, normalizing this, normalizing that, etc.?
Yeah, all the time.
I will say like much less than we used to. I mean, it was really bad in like 2021 after January 6th and 2022 when he was kicked off social media. Cause then what we got a lot was like, he's banned from Twitter. Why are you putting him on here?
Yeah.
Or why are you posting his Truth Social stuff? And I'm like, because he's running for president.
Yeah.
And so we kind of need to know what he's doing, what he's saying, and I actually wish more people had paid attention to the kind of stuff he was saying back then, which they weren't.
You were
Because they
posting
didn't want us.
videos of him.
So we could just talk
Yeah.
about Trump, just clipping Trump generally, and I'm interested to hear these guys' perspectives, because I think we all might have one a little bit different. My thinking when I clip Trump is my audience hates him. And so they kind of want to know what he's up to, or if he says something outrageous, but they want to hear and see as little of him as possible. So my philosophy on like Trump clips is like 30 seconds is ideal. A minute is like my far end of my range. Past a minute, your percentages of people watching it goes way down. I think as soon as they see like 1 minute and 45 seconds Trump, they're not even going to play it, So that's where like the caption is also important, because there are so many people who want to read what he said, but they don't want to hear his voice. So these guys maybe caption him more extensively than I do, but they also clip him longer, because I think maybe I know Acyn is more sensitive to like not taking him out of context and showing the full context of his remarks, whereas I don't care about that. I just want the meat, from the bone, and I'm not worried about him hit the context of what he's saying. I'll give you a good example is the one from last night, where he talked about Kirk, right? So Acyn was doing something else. Aaron and I both clipped that. I noticed Aaron's clip was like 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Mine was 1 minute. And we both had the same thing in there, but he had stuff before and after. And it was just merely a function of, for me, like I could have put the other stuff in there, but I just felt like people weren't going to watch 2 minutes of Trump. But I think a lot of people watched Aaron's clip, so maybe I was wrong there.
Yeah, honestly, this shows you how sometimes things are kind of accidental. I had my multi-viewer up, and the first network that had Trump's statement was Real America's Voice, because it dropped just before the top of the hour. So the cable networks were like wrapping up their shows, and then they had like a block at the beginning before they played Trump's address. And so as a result, I didn't have Snapstream because I don't have that channel. So I was using kind of like a more rudimentary clip methodology, and it was just like I wanted to get it up basically. And so I was a little, I didn't make like a a precise plot on the back end of that. Like I kind of erred on the side of including more, but there wasn't a ton of strategy, although I did include a very lengthy quote, like beyond the character limit on X, which I think, Ron, kind of to what you were talking about. I mean, I've noticed over the years, there's much less of an appetite for his voice, his appearance. Decoding Fox News she kind of has like a cottage industry of doing Trump recaps that are like, where she speaks, she like does his voice, because, she claims that her audience just like won't listen to him. And I do think there is some of that, but like with that clip last night, it had kind of a breakout aspect to it because it was such a big news event, the Kirk assassination. And like, it's both people from the right and left looking at my clip. And then there was a good clip yesterday from Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, where, I thought he said like sane things at the very least about the shooting. And he made sure to bring up the Minnesota assassinations and the Shapiro attempted assassination. And so, that was one where, because I thought the 2-minute soundbite was really good, I erred on the longer side, and I saw by getting a lot of pickup both on the right and on the left. So, there can be kind of a sweet spot there for big news events. And that's one where I make sure to just kind of with Trump transcribe him, because I didn't want to put my finger on the scale and kind of alienate people before they even watch it.
Yeah. Acyn, what's your approach to clipping Trump?
Basically, like, I mean, this is kind of my approach with everything, but with him, it's a little different. But basically, you can think of it as a net, and that net is basically me going through Twitter nonstop, and adjusting the net for what I see on there, and then just casting it out there. And if anything hits the net, then it gets posted. Like for instance, with yesterday, what Ron and posted, I'm glad they posted, because I saw it earlier or whatever. I saw it like a minute or two before they posted. There's no way I would have gotten it up, but and there was like things in there. I don't know. I see these people on the right, and they are just self-censoring. They can't write the word shoot anymore. Like I see them putting in special characters or stars. I understand them. They censor the word rape. I get that, but there's other things. They're just self-censoring all the time, and I have no idea what it is that they're self-censoring for. Did someone they know get hit? Is there some kind of enforcement on that? So when I heard him talking about like, oh, when he uses the word murder, is that the new word that they're censoring now? Like I just was like, I'm not going to touch that. There was other stuff like that yesterday with Eric Trump too. He said the bullets are only going one way, and I was like, I'm not even sure about this today. But with Trump, I cast that net out there. I listen to everything he says. I'm kind of just sometimes with the rallies, it's different. Because the rallies was like a template. He used to just say the same thing over and over again. And then like once you get most of his rally speech already clipped, you're just repeating the clips. So it's not worth it to just keep repeating the same clips unless it was something that he hasn't corrected. But there are these little bits here and there where he'd go off script, and then he'd voice what wasn't on the teleprompter, and that you get like a break in between those, but you'd have to listen closely. With the Oval Office events and the events now, and with reporters, it's rapid fire. It's all new stuff every time, and that's where me and Aaron, like, we're just going at it. We're just trying to get the clip first, and we're just trying to get it out there. But it's not easy with those events. But basically, I just look for what doesn't make sense, what sounds off, what currently is a topic of interest, and how is he weighing in on it, and getting it out there, and he provides a lot of clips. So.
I guess the last thing I want to ask, I lied to you. That wasn't my last question. This is my last question, because I appreciate you guys so much, and I have said many times that you're where I go when I want to watch video clips of news. What would you say to like the mainstream media or legacy media who's like, that's not journalism, they're not doing due diligence, et cetera, et cetera? This is where a lot of people are going now, predominantly, I would say, is to accounts like yours, and then secondary to accounts like mine that are tweeting and resharing stuff like yours. But like, what do you say both to why you have a real function, and why you don't have to go too hard on legacy media, but like why they shouldn't be giving you guys shit, and they should actually be leaning into what you're doing more and more, I would say.
Go ahead,
Aaron,
I actually don't get that much shit. I mean, I do have relationships with a lot of people in legacy media who oftentimes are like flagging things for me, because there was like a segment that they think was really good, or an interview that they think was really good. So yeah, I think there's been more acceptance of clips over the years. Like I remember when I first started clipping MSNBC, and this is, I'll tell the story really briefly. Of course, everybody remembers they have the footage of Epstein and Trump from Mar-a-Lago where they're partying together. And they debuted that on a Morning Joe. It must have been like 2019, possibly like early in the year. And MSNBC had like a digital producer who, posted the clip from Morning Show, who was immediately in my DMs, like kind of threatening, like, this is our footage. We're going to get lawyers involved. And they contacted people at Vox where like it became like a big thing. It was like, oh my God.
Mm.
And I ended up, I think I was on like, I was on kind of like double secret probation. It wasn't like, they just told me to like kind of lay off the MSNBC clips for a while. But I feel like that mentality is kind of a thing of the past now. Because, I think it's kind of promoting their stuff in most instances. And, I guess maybe maybe a conversation for another time in terms of like, does that cut into their audience because people are just consuming clips and not the real thing? But I think especially if you're like an anchor and you're doing these interviews, like there's kind of a pride in your work. And if you think it's something that you want to be out there, I think that's where people like myself, Acyn, and Ron come in to kind of help spread that and get the word out. Maybe people will tune in the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a little bit more snobbishness a few years ago than there is now about it, as far as like from journalists go, as far as like not considering it. I think I think a lot of them didn't consider there to be any skill or art involved in it. They just thought it was like a robotic exercise that we're just watching shows and rallies and just cranking out clips, and there's no journalism involved, right? There's no discernment. There's no editorial judgment. But I think that a lot of them over the years have seen that that's not the case,
Mhm.
because to me, I mean, there's a lot of skill and art that goes into it. Just, working with Acyn every day and watching how he does things, and also watching Aaron too. Um, just knowing what to look for. I see so many other people try and do it and fail, and just not get any traction because they don't understand what a certain audience wants to hear or what they want to know. They're putting out things that they think is good, but there's just not a big audience for it. So you really kind of have to know what to look for, how to cut it. So many people put out long clips, like we mentioned Bulwark. I know
Mhm.
they have a younger guy doing it, and he's a good guy and everything, but like if I had a critique of him, and I have talked to him a few times, his clips are super long, and
Mm.
that there's an art to that too. I mean, like where you cut a clip can make all the difference in the world
Yeah.
sometimes. Like I'll cut sometimes the same thing that Ason's doing maybe 10 seconds sooner, and it will do better just because I think I stopped it at the right spot, or vice versa. He'll cut it better than me, which I've seen before too. So to me, there is an art and a skill to it, that I think a lot of people that are just regular journalists who do regular journalist things don't necessarily appreciate or give people credit for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as far as legacy media is concerned, I've seen them use the clips like I'll post something and they'll focus on it on CNN sometimes MSNBC, and sometimes even on Fox. And I see them also repeat the stuff I post on the show. So I think they're okay with it. And they don't mind. I haven't really gotten too many issues with legacy media. And what Ron is saying is 100% correct. I hate to say it, but it really just depends on how I feel that day and
Mhm.
how in tune I am with the audience up there. And it's not just my audience. Like I have to consider how to play with this group or that group. Who's looking for this clip? Who's this going to take off with? And if I'm just feeling out of sync with everybody, I'm not up to date on everything. I don't know what the mood is out there. Like yesterday was a really tough day to clip because it was such a shocking event, and I just was like, I'm not even sure what to clip today. It just everything felt off. So a lot of it is just like art, and and Ron, we talk a lot. We're always in communication. I'm always talking to Aaron in DM, and I'm seeing what Aaron's tweeting, and that kind of helps me out sometimes too. I'm seeing what he's focusing on. I also see what other people do, and that helps me get more in sync with what people are looking for.
Yeah. Just as we wrap, yesterday was a surreal day for all of us. I mean, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I just wanted to add, Aaron, what you just went through with your family in Minneapolis. I just wanted to say, I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, and as a mom, right? Like, I don't want to tell your story, but you posted about it. And my heart just dropped reading that and knowing that you and your wife had to. I mean, I feel like I've watched your babies grow up, so they kind of feel like, surrogate family of my own. But I don't know if, like yesterday for me, one of the first things I thought about was how triggering that might have been for you. After going through what you just went through. I don't know if you want to talk about that really fast before, and it doesn't seem like the kind of thing you
Sure.
talk about really
No,
fast, but
yeah, no, it really was. Because, having lived through that a few weeks ago or a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was, it kind of, it was a very weird experience to live through because, I pulled up, after the smoke had kind of cleared, we knew that our kids were okay. We got home, and then I was just kind of like sitting at the computer, like kind of in shock, and to see people kind of retreating to like the same talking points about it because it was such a human experience. There's just something, it's almost hard to put into words, but it was very different to like live through it than when you kind of process it as like a community event where you're on social media or watching TV or something like that. And so, yeah, I mean, that kind of hit me, on that level of just like, my thoughts went out to Kirk's family. And, obviously this is not a defense of the things that he stood for and kind of the bigotry and, I mean, but there is kind of a human aspect to these stories too, where it's just, it's just an awful thing, for his wife and kids. And I really feel from there. And yeah, I mean, it's weird. So yeah, I did make the choice, to kind of log off yesterday. I dipped back in the evening, once Trump had his speech and, there was a little more reaction, but there wasn't much to say in the moment. Yeah, I needed a few hours to kind of process things, both personally and kind of, in terms of what this means for our society, because I think it's bad for our society too. I mean, I would be really afraid if I was doing, like a Hassan Piker and you're doing like public events. I mean, my goodness, I'd be really worried about that right now. And that's a really unfortunate thing for our country.
No, to
yeah.
pick up on what he said, I mean, everybody wants to go to the political angle, who's involved in this stuff, rather than the personal, angle on both sides. And I've always sort of had this motto of for mass shootings, I have a 24-hour rule where I just kind of sit back and I don't hardly ever comment on them at all for 24 hours. And I lose a lot of engagement that way, but I feel like it served me very well, just to kind of stay out because so much stuff that gets put out is false.
Mm,
And I also have a rule that it's like a 72-hour rule where I don't say anything bad about somebody who just died,
mm.
regardless of how I feel about them. That philosophy was sorely tested when Rush Limbaugh died, but I was good. But I think both of those things get a lot of people in trouble on social media when they do those things, when they jump on a mass shooting and they run with a narrative and it turns out to be false. And also when they can't resist the urge to air their grievances about someone who just was killed or just died. I just think like there's a time and a place for everything, and that's kind of not the time for it,
Yeah.
So
And Acyn, you're the one who broke the Trump Butler thing for me. So that was the first time I had seen it. It was and all you said was, I think it was, maybe you remember Donald Trump shot or something like that. It was like a very quick caption, but I think that's what you said. Do you remember?
Yeah, I went, it was happening, and I was watching it, and I had no idea what was going on. I was like, what's that noise? What's going on? Is there some kind of issue with the microphone or something? Is there? And then while it was happening, I'm just, is this real? What the hell? I just was at a loss for words. I was in kind of like shock while it was happening. And I'm sitting there trying to type, but I'm seeing it, it just wasn't coming out. And I typed that first, the shot, and then I wasn't sure. I didn't know there was any clue. And then I posted a clip, just shooting at the Trump rally.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
mean, it was really difficult to even get that out. I was kind of, I mean, I hate to say shock 50 times over again, but that's pretty much what happened. And, I just had no clue what was going on. It was just insane. So, I mean, whenever these events happen, I'm always pretty, and I hate to say it again, shocked, but yeah, I mean, it's not great. So.
Well, I've kept you guys much longer than I said I would. And I want you to know that, as you guys know, I personally thank you so much because I don't know how you sleep. I don't know how you ever rest. I don't know when you do because you're always on. You're always putting these things out there for people like me to be informed and also engage with and then to share with my audience. So you know how much I appreciate you. And if you don't, I want to tell you again, because I do. And I know a lot of people do, and it makes a difference. And you're very careful at making sure that what you're putting out there is legit. And that also makes a huge difference. And I want you to know that I appreciate that too. And I'm so glad you guys got to join me together. A friend of mine said to call you the steel curtain, but I was worried I was going to say meat curtain. And then I was worried I was going to say Arby's roast beef. And then it all got muddled in my head.
Oh,
And I said it out loud anyway. But thank you guys, honestly. Thank you so much. And it's great to see your faces and hear your voice, in your case, Acyn, all together.
Thanks.
I want to thank you too, Joe, because sometimes, like, I know for all of us, maybe some of our clips are a little bit slow, and then you chime in with a great reply and it takes off. I mean, that's happened to
yeah.
me many times. So, a lot of what we do is like dependent on people like you too.
Well, you
Yeah.
guys, you set
Yeah,
me
thanks,
up.
Joe. Thanks a lot. And I was heartened to see your interview with Gavin from a couple weeks back. I'm sure you noticed as well that got I saw that clip on Fox at least like a half dozen times. So
Yeah,
I'm sure that was some good promotion for you. And so keep up the good work. And
thanks.
thanks for having us. It's always good to see people in person, or I guess through Zoom, but as close as we'll probably get to being in person until Ron. I guess last time I saw you in person was at the Biden White House. So maybe 2029, we'll see. Maybe if it's
Maybe
Gavin, we'll
we'll
all
get
be there
back
together.
there.
So
Well, that's where I saw you last, Aaron, too. I think we were there together twice.
yes,
I think once when you had only one child, and then I think once when your son had just been born. But yeah, let's put a pin in a Newsom White House reunion, maybe. Yeah, thanks guys, and thanks for setting me up so well, because like what Ron knows, he can't say anything about their tits and asses and their plastic surgery, but I can. And I'm going to every fucking time. And Aaron, you may not have known this, but when you posted that clip about Trump and didn't say a word, I was like, well, that's a layup. I'm going to take that one. So it looked like he had a stroke,
see,
whatever. But thanks, guys.
that's
Thanks so
teamwork.
much for joining me on the Siren podcast. I hope to talk to all of you again really soon. I'm sure you'll be seeing me clip you or share your clips all day long, as always. All right. Well, this concludes this episode of the Siren. Thanks, Ron Filipkowski, Aaron Rupar, and Acyn. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.